We're on Numbers chapter 14. This is kind of a continuation from last week. Last week, the spies, they came back and they did not like what they saw in the Canaan. So this week, the people join in. They get their 2 cents in here, and we'll read about it. So, verse 1, and all the congregation, so it's continuing on from the last one, okay? Joshua and Caleb was the only 2 that said, yeah, we're more than able to go up and take care of them, and yeah, they're big, and yeah, they're doing all this, and they're numerous, but the Lord's more than able. So they heard both sides of the story. One of them said as big as ants. I mean, they look like ants, and we look like ants on their side, and others said, no, we can do it. So the congregation. Now, it's not everybody, in the congregation. Whenever you say that, it's not, say this congregation decided to do something. Usually, there's 1 or 2 people don't really want to do it. And that's okay. I mean, it's not things like this. And in this particular case, it was pretty important to follow God's word. But, so, when we say, and all the congregation lift up their voice, I'm pretty sure there was some that what. We know Joshua and Caleb what. They're kind of excluding them. And we know that Moses and Aaron, they didn't have that opinion either because God had told them. So it said both of these 2 spies, Caleb and Joshua, were the ones that said that they could go up and possess the land. But all the others, the 10 others, they said, no, we're not going to. That's not in the book. And God has been touching them through this whole time, leading them over a year, about almost 14 months now, from Egypt, with all the 10 plagues before, and then with the fire by night and the cloud by day, and taught them how to fight, taught them how to assemble themselves, set up the tabernacle, had them build the tabernacle, all these things. And before they started out on their trip, that, yeah, we're ready to go. But once they got there, they didn't want to go. So, said we should not forget the 12 spies were sent, 1 from each tribe. In this way, that truly represented the people of Israel. The lack of faith of the majority of the spies is a lack of faith on behalf of the whole nation. And that's what happens. Whenever you get so many, they're going to, a lot of times what happens, if you get a majority of people saying something, and you're in the minority, you usually keep quiet. Because you don't want to stir up the hornet's nest type deal. But that's not, when it comes to God, and God says something, that's not what you need to do. You need to follow after God. The commentator in this one, he goes on the last paragraph, says, but why were the spies sent? There was no additional military information needed. God had promised them the victory. Perhaps a reading of the terrain would have been helpful, but Moses told them to see if the land was good and to see if the people in cities were weak or strong. This information may have indirectly led to the bad report of the 10 spies. What he's saying, God didn't really sanction sending the spies out. If you go back, and we talked about this a little bit last week in Exodus, he didn't say, yeah, the people brought up, God told them, go take the land. Led them to the promised land, said, go take the land. And the people said, well, why don't we send a few people out, check this out, and make sure it's all what it want to be. Moses goes, hey, that sounds like a pretty good idea. Why don't we do that? And then God said, okay, if you're doing that, take 1 from each tribe. He's trying to get, a little balance there to see. Here again, it kind of goes back to what we talked about Sunday. God knew what they were going to do before they even thought about it. So he put his little, go ahead.
Isn't it strange how, though, God spoke?
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, God spoke.
That's right.
And now, because of he let a little doubt, Moses did,
mm-hmm.
let a little doubt come in. Well, that sounds, no, that's not what God said.
No,
I mean,
no.
we get defeated sometimes because we let doubts.
We have to do something. And it's different than what we've done before. We want the easy way out, don't we?
Yeah.
We want to do what we've always done, and when it comes time, we want to do it. Here they had to do something that they wasn't used to. And it was a problem that God saw in them that they didn't even know they had. Even though, like I said,
that really consult God, they just kind of.
No, if you go back in Exodus,
yeah.
God tells them, Moses wrote down, God said, go and possess the land.
Yeah.
Here in Numbers last week, it kind of indicated Moses said, let's go spy out the land. Moses didn't really say that. The people, if you go back and say to the congregation, said, let's go out and spy the land.
Yeah.
And Moses kind of okayed that without checking with God. We see that happen sometimes in godly men, that they get, okay, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. I'll without checking. So we have to check with God on things.
Because it's like when God said go take the land, he knew they could do it without having any problems.
Right, he was going to be with them.
So they're going to spies.
He already took care of the Egyptian army. They didn't have to do anything except go across some land, some sea out there that became land for them. They had to believe that. And once they did, it worked out. But this is just a total loss for them. It goes into saying that they were mourning. They gave into the feeling of unbelief and fear. And that's what happens when it's different. And we said, well, what if this happens? What if that happens? How many times in our life do we do that? What if so-and-so's not there? I'm going to this place and they're not there. I don't really want to face all these people without them. My friend there. That shouldn't be a problem. If God had told us to go there and do that, we need to go on and do it. So it said that night the people wept. It goes on the last part of it, that the people wept. So they were so concerned about it that they were upset, physically upset, that they would not go on and do this. Brother Epson, 2 and 3.
And all the children of Israel murmured against Moses and against Aaron. And the whole congregation said unto them, would God that we had died in the land of Egypt, or would God we had died in this wilderness? And wherefore hath the Lord brought us into this land to fall by the sword, that our wives and our children should be afraid.
Okay. So this doubt that they had led them to start doubting Moses and Aaron. And so they started talking about them and murmuring against them, that they don't, why are we following these guys? They're going to lead us into death. That's what, that we are so short-minded, so short-sighted. We can't remember anything when it really should be something big that we learned. We want to go back to, again, what was easy and what I'm used to doing. Joshua and Caleb was the only one that knew. Said they only do not rebel against the Lord. And the Lord himself knew, how long will these people reject me? And we're not reading that part yet, but and we see that he wanted to lead the people out, but yet they keep stalling on him. He, not wanting to serve him. So they've gone all the way from, we can't do this, to they're going to kill us right where we're at, just because we're here. Let's get us a new leader.
It's almost like it's not what you've done for us in this past, it's what have you done for us lately?
Today.
In other words, how come you just don't wipe them people out?
We see that in our lives today. What happened yesterday, that's yesterday. You did it yesterday, but what do I do today? What are you going to do for me today?
And I should have been so patient.
You should. On page 4 in the middle there, Iris, 3 and 4.
They rebelled by longing for the memory of Egypt.
No, it's right here, page 4.
4.
Right in the middle.
Yes, you got it.
Is that it? Oh, okay, yeah, you're reading the title. Go ahead.
You did.
That's right, you're doing right.
Is there a space in there?
Well, it starts out,
Yeah, read the
Yeah.
later.
yeah,
Were it not better for us to return into Egypt? And they said one to another, let us make a captain and let us return into Egypt.
so they went from Moses leading them to now they want somebody else to lead them back.
Yeah.
What do they got that's good for them in Egypt? Those people are going to be awful mad because they killed off their army. They're not, it doesn't reason. It's like people are so silly.
Okay, just think of that, and then think of how people look at you. I was just thinking, people actually look and think up here, okay, with their mind, that a male can be a female.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that sounds, but they believe that.
Yeah.
They're so hung up on that stuff.
Right.
They forget that goes against nature. That, I mean, hey man, took away their straw. I mean, they forgot all of that stuff.
Yeah, they want to do what they want to do. And that's it. That's basically it.
And they don't care about anybody else's. They just do.
No, they get the people on their side. A few people get started murmuring, and then a few people, and then all of a sudden,
Everybody's burning.
yeah, everybody is saying the same thing. And said, notice how this is man-centered.
And they forget that Jesus listens.
It says they said one another, let us go get a captain. They weren't talking to God. They weren't talking to Moses. They weren't talking to anybody. They started out on their own. Okay, on the next page, 5 through 9, Rose. Ruby, sorry. Yeah.
And Moses and Aaron fell on their faces before all the assembly of the congregation of the children of Israel. And Joshua the son of Nun, and Caleb the son of Yah. I'm not even going to try.
That's all right.
Which were of them that searched the land, rent their clothes, and they spoke unto all the company of the children of Israel, saying, the land which we passed through to search it was exceedingly good land. If the Lord delight in us, then he will bring us unto this land and give it to us, and the land which flowed with milk and honey. Only rebellion, not yet against the Lord, neither fear ye the people of the land, for they are bread for us, their defenses is departed from them, and the Lord is with us. Fear them not.
Okay. So you ever heard the story where somebody tells something and the guy next to you kind of moves away and he says, I'm getting away from you. The Lord may strike you with lightning. Well, that's kind of what Moses and Aaron did. Yeah, they fell on their faces. They were not, they didn't even say anything to the people. It doesn't say, it was recorded. They just fell down. But the two young guys, Caleb and Joshua, they stuck up for Moses and Aaron and said, look, we went out there. We're 2 of the 12, and we said that this is what the land is, and it's good, and that we can take it. The Lord told us we could take it, and we can do it. So, and he kind of said there at the last, they don't have a defense. Their defense is for the Lord. The Lord is with us, so we have, nobody's going to be able to fear us. And they did that, and they tore their clothes. It's kind of like when they, get so upset, the Jewish people do, like when somebody dies or something like that, they tear their clothes up.
Yeah.
And that's what they did. They were getting excited, that the people were trying to back out.
She's done that when John the Baptist was
Yeah,
killed.
yeah, he ripped his
Yeah.
tunic, stuff. Chapter, or verse 10, on page 6, Bertha.
But the congregation laid stone from them were stones, and the glory of the Lord appeared in the tabernacle of the congregation before all the children of Israel.
Okay? So, kind of taking this in, the people wanted to stone Joshua and Caleb, it appears. Didn't mention them, but says the bade them with stones, and they may have been at the front over Moses and Aaron. But anyway, they said, you know, they were wanting to kill them. Well, that's all God needed.
Yeah.
Boom. He came down. Now his fire by night and cloud by day was still there, but this says the Lord appeared, and so it's the Shekinah again appeared before them, and basically, you know, I would say what it always does, blinds them. Doesn't say that here, but that's essentially, it stopped it right there. Stopped any murmuring, stopped anything like that. And all these things that goes through that, was it consistent with the glory of the Lord to be unbelieving? No. Was it consistent with the glory of the Lord to mourn because the walk of faith was hard? No. Nobody ever told us it's going to be easy to do these things. But we have to go ahead and still do them. Okay? Things that we don't like to do. There's a lot of things I don't like to do at the house. If it don't get done, something will break, or, you know, something
Clean
gets
the closet down with Darla.
anything.
Yeah.
I mean, it just, you know, you have to do certain things.
Yeah.
So verse 11 and 12, as soon as the glory showed up, the Lord said unto Moses, spoke unto him, and the Lord said, how long will this people provoke, and how long will it be ere they believe me? For all the signs which I have showed them, I will smite them with the pestilence, and disinherit them, and make of thee a greater nation and mightier than them, than they. So he was of the opinion, let me start over. You know, started with Abraham, he did okay, but these people here, they are not what they should be. It says, many times the child of God in rebellion wonders why they do not hear the voice of God anymore. Well, why should they? They are rejecting what God has already said. Do they think they can be open to what more he might say? So many times, it's kind of like slapping you upside the head. Once you do it so many times, you don't, you know, it's not going to help you. You have to keep doing it over and over. And that's what God was getting tired. I know we attribute physical, but he was getting tired of these people. Keep trying his patience, basically. So he wanted to disinherit them. He'd done this once before. He told Moses, you know, I'll just take care, I'll make you greater when he's up on the mountain, I believe it was. I'll just wipe these people out and we'll start over with you. And you see, Moses doesn't want that. All through this, Moses, his family doesn't play a big part in this transition. It's Aaron and his family and some of the others as they became the priests. Joshua and Caleb, they became leaders after Moses. It wasn't Moses' kids. So we see that Moses tried to stay out of this. He tried to stay humble. We talked about that a little bit last week, to not influence it. He was following what God had said. And it's kind of like, okay, I'll just step back and let God take care of it. Well, when God here was going to reject them again, he didn't like that. He just said no. So verse 13 to 16, Brother Everson. It's on the next page.
And Moses said unto the Lord, then the Egyptians shall hear it, for thou broughtest up this people in thy might from among them, and they will tell it to the inhabitants of this land, for they have heard that thou, Lord, art among this people. Now if thou shalt kill all this people as one man, then the nations which you have heard the fame of thee will speak, saying, because the Lord was not able to bring this people into the land which he sware unto them, therefore he hath slain them in the wilderness.
Okay. So Moses, again, he said before, had a similar thing that a conversation with God. Don't do this because the people that, they'll get the wrong idea if you slay all these people. You brought them out here and then you just slay them. And that's what he's saying here. Back then he said the Egyptians shall hear it. Well, then the Canaanites and the Amorites and all the people that's here in Canaan, they'll know, well, these people aren't going to be. We thought it was going to, all the 10 plagues and everything that happened down there, we thought we were going to get beat up. And now, they sound like a bunch of, sissies that they could, we could take them any day, no problem. And that's what he's trying to tell God. God knew this. Again, I think he's testing Moses a little bit too. Are you really wanting to do this? Are you really wanting to follow what the people say?
Okay. When Jacob and them left the land to go to Egypt, they weren't going back to that. They were going to a new land, right? Or were they going back to where?
When Jacob and them left.
When Jacob left and went to Egypt.
Yeah.
They were put in bondage.
Yeah.
For those 400 years.
Yeah.
And they're going back
to where they were, supposedly. Where Abraham had buried Sarah, where, this land that had been bought, his land of his forefathers, they said. And there wasn't nobody around. Nobody had lived that 400 years, so they didn't know they had passed it down. And I'm sure people that may have gone back and forth to know where that was at, because when they finally get to Canaan and start doing that, they say, yeah, this is our well because this is Jacob's well. This is what he dug. We know that. And how would they know that? It had to have been passed down. The stories, because when Jacob dug that well, it's supposedly, we've dug a whole bunch of wells around here and ain't nothing, found no water. And then Jacob struck water, when he did it, because God was with him again. He dug in the right place. So he's trying to put God forward again as far as the Egyptians, what they hear, all that they've seen was what's happened, but now if they die out here, they're not going to think very highly of it. They still think their gods are better than the one God. So Moses steps up 17 through 19, Iris, on top of page 9.
Moses intercedes for Israel, appealing to God's power and promise. And now I beseech thee, let the power of my Lord be great, according as thou hast spoken, saying, the Lord is long-suffering and of great mercy, forgiving iniquity and transgression, and by no means clearing the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation. Pardon, I beseech thee, the iniquity of this people, according unto the greatness of thy mercy, and as thou hast forgiven this people from Egypt even until now.
So Moses is speaking up for the people again. Telling them, the Egyptian people will not like it. They'll turn on you. Well, they'll just think that they were brought out here to be killed. Well, he's telling them now, reminding God or telling God of all these things. And we understand that you're the one in control. These people are committing a sin. They're committing iniquity. And I understand it's going to be visited on the people, the children, unto the third and the fourth generation. You're going to be there. But he's saying, please pardon them. don't do this. That even as they have forgiven all the way back from Egypt, even unto now, please forgive them of what they were wanting to do. It says, Moses knew God's power and appealed unto it. Moses knew God's promise and he appealed to it. Moses knew God's glory and appealed to it. This was a spectacular example of intercession. What made this intercession spectacular was not primarily Moses' method, but Moses' heart. Here, Moses is totally others-centered, not centered or concerned for his own glory, but only for Israel. He displays his share. He displays and he shares the heart of God towards his people, and that is what made Moses' intercession spectacular. Okay? And all this happens in a pretty quick time, in an instant, because he says in 14 and 20, Ruby, you want to read that for us there at the top of page 10? It's that one line.
And the Lord said, I have pardoned according to thy word.
Okay? So that's easy. He said, okay, I'll do it.
Yeah.
I'll do what you want. Kind of like I told you so, but you're going to live with it. But the shoe hadn't fell yet. The other shoe hadn't dropped. Bertha, 21 through 25.
Okay. But as truly as I live, all the earth shall be filled with the glory of the Lord, because all of men which have seen my glory and my miracles, which I did in Egypt and in the wilderness, and have tempted me, now these see 10 times, and have not hearkened to my voice. Surely they shall not see the land which I swear unto their fathers, neither shall any of them that provoked me see it. By my servant Caleb, because he had another spirit with him, and hath followed me fully, him will bring into the land whereunto he went, and his seed shall possess it. Now the Amalekites and the Canaanites dwelt in the valley. Tomorrow turn you and get you into the wilderness by the way of the Red Sea.
Okay? So God was ready for them to go. They was ready to storm the place. They'd marched right up to the very, gates of Canaan, if you want to say it that way. There wasn't gates, but just say that. And then they stalled out. So he's telling them, here, I'm going to do what you said, but you need to go back into the wilderness. Get back a little bit, because the Canaanites and the Amalekites, they're right there. They're in the next valley over, and they've been watching this whole time. And they can come down and rain fire, upon you. They're going to take you out. But in the meantime, very important, and you can go back and count them, and it says over here, one of the places, maybe it's not here, it's another commentary, it pointed out the different 10 times that they, the water, the manna, where they griped and complained, going across the Red Sea, all these different things. There was 10 times. God said, look, I was with them 10 times, and they wouldn't believe me. None of you guys are going to see the Canaanite.
It was 10 that did not want to go with the promise.
That's right. So none of you guys are going to go see it. Only save Caleb. Now, we know Joshua was also included in that, because he was a part of Moses. He was Moses' assistant by that time. But the one that was a standalone, as far as he didn't have anything to do with the hierarchy, was Caleb. And that's what he said. And later on, we'll see Caleb got his choice. Later on, Joshua will ask him, where do you want to put your staff at? He said, oh, I like this place over here. I'm going to go take it. And he does. So he's telling them, get back, go back by the way of the Red Sea. And they was down there by the Red Sea for a long time. Now they got to go back, turn around, and go back. Because if they didn't, that's going to get wiped out. So it's going to tell us here in a minute. 26 through 35. And the Lord spake unto Moses and unto Aaron, saying, How long shall I bear with this evil congregation, which murmur against me? I have heard the murmurings of the children of Israel, which they murmur against me. Say unto them, As truly as I live, saith the Lord, as ye have spoken in my ears, so will I do to you. Your carcasses shall fall in this wilderness, and all that were numbered of you according to your whole number, from 20 years old and upward, which have murmured against me. Doubtless ye shall not come into the land concerning which I swear to make you dwell therein, save Caleb. Oh, that's just what you read, wasn't it? Did I duplicate that? No, same thing. Okay? He's just repeating it. Except Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, and Joshua, here he says Joshua, the son of Nun. But your little ones, which ye said should be a prey, them will I bring in, and they shall know the land which ye have despised. But as for you, your carcasses, they shall fall in the wilderness, and your children shall wander in the wilderness 40 years, and bear your whoredoms until your carcasses be wasted in the land in the wilderness. After the number of days in which ye search the land, even 40 days, each day for a year, shall ye bear your iniquities, even 40 years. And ye shall know my breach of promise. I, the Lord, have said, I will surely do it unto all this evil congregation that are gathered together against me. In this wilderness they shall be consumed, and there they shall die. They were all worried about dying over in Canaan because they're going to, well, now they're going to get their choice. They're going to die. Yeah. Except the ones under 20 and under. The ones that said 20 and over, actually, is what it said.
39 beside the oldest one that went into Canaan land.
Yeah. Yeah.
The prophet was 39.
Would have been 39 besides Joshua and Caleb. It had went through. Now, God did relent a little bit. He says you're going to wander around 40 years. Well, they'd already been wandering almost, like I said, a year and a half, year and a couple, 3 months. So he said that'll be part of the 40 years. That's just, you look at it. He doesn't say that, but you look at it, and that's part of the 40 years that you're going to be wandering around. But they're going to be dying. They won't have any place to rest. They'll bury them out there in the desert. They'll bury them wherever they're at because they don't have a place. They could have, but they didn't have that time. So they were so worried about their kids. They'll be prey. Well, now the kids are going to go and they're going to take the land. That's what he's telling them. It says, we may imagine many in Israel objected, saying, we did not despise the land. We wanted it. We were just afraid. But they did despise it because as much as anything, it was a land of faith for people of faith. And the unbelieving and rebellious do despise the land. You know, they were trying to say, we didn't say that. Well, yeah, you did. You kind of did. You didn't say exactly that. Yeah, they wanted the area, but they just wanted to waltz in and take it. And God would have done that for them. He did that for them a little later on in several cases. They didn't even have to fight. But if they would have followed God, there was sometimes when they'd had to fight just like they did, I'm sure, and sometimes that God would have taken care of it. It says the old man, the man still slave-minded to sin, can never enter into God's promises. That old man must die, and God will do whatever it takes to make it happen. This is a type and a shadow of salvation. When you have that salvation, all that sin nature has to die and be left behind. It says this is a turning point in Israel's history, and it's an essential lesson for every believer. In Psalms 95, it talks about, today, if you will hear his voice, do not harden your hearts as in the rebellion, as in the day of the trial in the wilderness. This is David talking. Okay, he's reminding them. When your fathers tested me, they tried me, though they saw my work. For 40 years I was grieved with that generation, and said, it is a people who go astray in their hearts. They do not know my ways. So I swore in my wrath, they shall not enter my rest. So even David saw it hundreds of years later. He saw what had happened and it was repeating. It's not, like I said, it's not nothing new. It repeats. It just goes over and over. So God knew what they were going to do. Nehemiah also, in chapter 9, says, "But they and our fathers acted proudly, hardened their necks, and did not heed your commandments. They refused to obey, and they were not mindful of your wonders that you did among them. But they hardened their necks, and in their rebellion they appointed a leader to return to their bondage." So it's, again, just trying to show them we need to be following God and not following after our own selves. Hebrews also makes it clear God has a place of rest and promise for every believer to enter into, and it can only be entered by faith. The man of unbelief and self-reliance and self-focus can never enter into God's rest and abundance. The world today, that they want it on their terms, what they want. They want their salvation or their utopia, whatever it is, on their, what they want to do. And that's not what God said. God has His ways, and they have to follow after those ways. You okay?
I just wondered what that noise is that
The air conditioner? Yeah, the air conditioner. This side's pretty loud when it kicks on. So 36 through 38, Brother Epperson.
And the men which Moses sent to search the land, who returned and made all the congregation to murmur against him by bringing up a slander upon the land, even those men that did bring up the evil report upon the land died by the plague before the Lord. Joshua the son of Nun and Caleb the son of Jephunneh, which were of the men that went to search the land, lived still.
Okay. Now I know there's a lot of verses in between. We see a lot of things that happened earlier, but I'm saying as soon as the glory hit, those guys went down. Some kind of plague hit them, some kind of something hit them, and the people, that got their attention real quick. God spoke up to Moses and told him, "I'm not standing for this. This is crazy." And he told them, "None of you guys are gonna, enter into the land." And boom, those 10 just fall over right there. And I think this is the last one, so I'll read it. It's a long one. "And Moses told these sayings unto all the children of Israel, and the people mourned greatly." Okay. He told it to Moses, so Moses had to go back and repeat it to them. "And they rose up early in the morning, and got them out into the top of the mountain, saying, Lo, we be here, and we will go up into the place which the Lord hath promised. For we have sinned. And Moses said, Wherefore now do ye transgress the commandment of the Lord? But it shall not prosper. Go not up, for the Lord's not among you, that ye be not smitten before your enemies. For the Amalekites and the Canaanites are there, Canaanites there before you, and ye shall fall by the sword, because ye are turned away from the Lord. Therefore the Lord will not be with you. But they presumed to go up unto the top of the hill. Nevertheless, the ark of the covenant of the Lord and Moses departed not out of the camp. Then the Amalekites came down, and the Canaanites which dwelt in that hill, and smote them, and discomfited them, even unto Hormah." You talk about stupid leading stupid. "Oh, well, we're sorry. Now we're not going to do it. We can make it better by doing what you said now." No, you should have done it before. And they went and did it, and they got killed. A bunch of them got killed then. They wanted to go fight them then, but the Lord wasn't with them then. That's just kind of like you're $1 late, a day short. day short and dollar late, whatever they say. So they were the ones that was up in the hill country and up in the mountains. They came down on them and they rushed them out. They didn't. It wasn't no, wait and have our own time. They started running them out right away. So they had they had a success, and that gave them the strength to help rebel them for many years after that. Oh God, they wandered around for 40 years, but even when they go to take them, they still had a lot of problems because these guys, they don't believe in their God, so God's not help them, and God usually turned, on them so they would believe, but they couldn't. At that particular time, they thought they had the upper hand. They would go and do all this and take it. So, any thoughts?
Good lesson.
We'll continue next
Very
week.
well explained. Because some of these names and tribes are not easy to pronounce.
Well, you go over